History by Carol Ann Duffy. Carol Ann Duffy is a contemporary British poet and playwright. She was raised as a Catholic in Glasgow and began producing poetry from the young age of 11. She was the first ever woman, Scottish-born and LGBT poet to win a Poet Laureate back in May 2009. She has a degree in philosophy and she is teaching contemporary poetry at Manchester Metropolitan University. She has earned many awards for her poetry since 1983 and has received honorary positions in many universities and many other competitions. She's mostly well known for her anthology, Feminine Gospels, and for other poetry like that has given her success to preach her ideas to help improve the world. Old at Last would suggest that she has lived a long life and gained experience over her life. Bones in Bed suggests that she is almost a husk of her old body and is slowly rotting away day by day. The use of a night dress in this scenario suggests that she may not change clothes often due to difficulty or just little care anymore. This could show a deterioration in her mental state. The smell of pee supports the feeling of decay in this person, further emphasizing how close they feel to death's door. The caesura sprinkled throughout the stanzas could help us understand and further emphasize the shuffled feeling her head must have. It probably is an experience of her being old or confused. The rhyme scheme in this poem seems to be choppy, whereas some lines have rhyming couplets and others just lead on to each other. This could again suggest that her mind is shuffled, scattered, and could have links to some things like dementia. Slurped as a word suggests that she doesn't have enough energy to sip and instead has to focus it into being able to drink. This may also be the fact that there is nobody around her and she doesn't care about her manners due to this. Twig's stained gloves metaphorically explains her hands, and it gives us the imagery of somebody that is old and fragile. Pulled on the coat followed by dozed snored shows that she may not have the energy to leave the house although she had plans. This again further emphasizes her fragility. Wheezed and coughed as verbs suggest suffering, which adds an imagery of a walking husk, a soulless person. It almost seems with the amount of description about the character we gain imagery of a person who may be a victim of neglect, or it may be due to her poor health and having no one around to help. Lay as a verb suggests that the woman is at peace when she can rest, which again shows due to her condition she may not be able to keep going all day. Shira's history would show that she has lived through a lot in her life and a lot of experiences that have built her as a person. But the use of was also suggests that she was a part of that history. The biblical references shown in this link to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, yet after an extravagant moment like this she could only focus on the war going on, showing maybe she has a pessimistic mindset. Spitting as a verb personifies the way in which they were throwing spears, showing the violence of this previous time. The end stop at the end of the first line of this stanza throws impact into the sentence. This makes us think about the phrase she was history as maybe she was dead or very close, which again only adds to her fragility. The Jura after breath shows that the poem takes a pause, further emphasizing the fact that the mother, Mary, couldn't bear to see what had happened to her son. This breath could also be representative of an older woman, as losing breath is a very common thing at old age. Death and birth as a juxtaposition can symbolize something like reincarnation or the awakening of Jesus Christ, which also links to the biblical references shown in this stanza. More biblical referencing, as this is now talking about the rise of Jesus Christ after being locked in a tomb for 3 days to finally being resurrected and being discovered by Saint Peter. There is also an allusion to the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. This could show that everything great was not meant to last, and this could be used to personify the woman. Turned into stone is a reference to the Roman air, but could also be a metaphor for her lungs turning to dust, being represented as corrupted air. This again adds on to her fragility. Witness the Wars could suggest that she has lived through the struggles of war, and it could be compared to her current struggles of living with the old age that she has become. There are many references to wars that may have happened during the lifetime of this woman. They include Bannockburn, which is the IRA versus the British Army, Passchendaele, World War One, Babi Yar, a massacre from World War Two, and Vietnam as a reference to the Vietnam War. The short list in the last 2 lines of the stanza shows the terrible effects of war and can be used to show that she has a ruined perspective of life. The character portrayed, again, has a focus on the pessimistic side of war, including death and torture. This again reflects her very bad outlook on life, which is represented later with her relationship, in which she doesn't have very many. No end stop, but rather a comma, could show that instead of war stopping the problems, it just continues to cause more, and alongside that, more suffering. Spat in the flames could represent how she has had her fire put out by these terrible experiences. The fire could represent her perspective of life, and this would explain why she is very pessimistic. Strutting and stuttering as verbs suggest a juxtaposition of confidence and cowardice that run through many leaders, as they have no idea how much power they hold and don't hold at a certain time. This could be her deterioration, as she has went from being a happy soul down to just a husk of a little person. Blew out his brains is very descriptive imagery to suggest that somebody has died due to a bullet in their head, which is again a very pessimistic thought and outlook on war. She woke again shows that these are the kind of dreams she has and could link to mental health or the more extreme PTSD. This again shows her pessimistic outlook on life. Caught in the Dark shows that she has slept for the entire day and maybe her thoughts have taken a toll on her energy or mental state. Caught in the Dark also suggests a very gloomy mood. The contrast from little children to a man blowing his brains out is very disturbing and shows just how shuffled her thoughts are. Empty house would suggest that the woman is not even considered a living being, yet she is without a soul and not worth noticing. It could also suggest that she is dead. The absence of the woman makes people believe her house is abandoned and brings on the behaviors exhibited, such as graffiti and shit being posted through the door. This also adds a look from the younger generation to the elderly and how they have little respect for them. These acts could also relate to the tragedies that war brings about, and the destruction of her property is the destruction of history. The newspaper is an important thing to look at as it shows current history and how they are currently making history for the better or for the worse. Linking to the shit could also show the way in which the media turns the situation away from the truth, which also alters history. Graffiti is important because art can tell a story due to it being hard to wash away like history, it becomes remembered. Things like the Berlin Wall were used to help create social change and peace. The poem shows clearly there is an outlook on society and its problems, and how in history we haven't changed that many things, and many things are still prominent in the world. This poem also has a focus on how women are excluded from history and how history is mainly male dominated. This is more than likely the style it is written in, as Carol Ann Duffy is a feminist poet and does a really good job at exposing this perspective. This also shows a clear cut in the attitudes of the elderly and the youth, and the difference in innocence and experience. This again shows another thing in our society that needs to be changed, and the two groups need to stop being divided.